I think we're live. Welcome, everyone. I think I say that every week. Welcome back to Monday night, 7 p.m. Thanks for joining us. It's really nice to see such a great community that we're creating, and lots of questions this week, which I'm really excited about too. We've got a bit to get through, so I hope you're all ready. I hope you had a good weekend and that wherever you are in Australia at the moment, you're safe and well. So I will start this week with the questions. We'll cover the questions, then we'll talk about the foods for this week and why you might try to choose some more orange foods in your life. And we'll also discuss just a few other things, podcast and the winners, and it just gets more and more exciting, really, doesn't it? So the first question from Erin, thank you, was what foods assist in the uptake of your multivitamins, firstly, and secondly, does your vitamin uptake change for over 50s or post-menopause? Good questions, thank you. So some nutrients are assisted in, they help each other to be assimilated. Some different environments will also help foods to be absorbed better as well. So the reason that you have certain nutrients that are affected after surgery is because both procedures, the bypass and the gastric sleeve, any kind of bypass, will leave you with a lower level of stomach acid and enzymatic activity in your tummy. So some nutrients rely on acid, some nutrients rely on each other, and others rely on just an overall good, healthy gut environment. And I feel like I say that every week for every other reason, but this is another one of them. So firstly, the foods that are affected by acid are iron, calcium, predominantly. So when you've got lower stomach acid, you could put in, say, 50 milligrams of iron. And if you're not ready to digest that, or for some reason acid is low, which could be surgery, could be stress, it could be age, it might be a malabsorptive disease like celiac disease or irritable bowel or IBS or IBD. So things like that, generally the malabsorptive conditions like celiac, irritable bowel, and IBS and IBD all seem to affect the same nutrients as a weight loss surgery patient for that reason, because the tummy's upset and it's lower in acid. So iron and calcium rely on acid. I think prior to surgery, your calcium absorption is as high as 40%. So from your food and supplemental calcium, whatever you're taking in, you would absorb 40% of that calcium. After surgery, it's been shown to be as low as about 7 to 9%. So you lose a significant level of that. And that's why your recommendations for your daily dose are higher. So some nutrients do assist each other. So iron particularly is really benefited by vitamin C. I think it is a rather large number where your absorption is increased. And I will look that up, because I think it's up to, I don't know, an extra 30 or 40% gets absorbed in the presence of vitamin C. So in your multi, you've got vitamin C and iron, so you're doing pretty well there. The other thing that can happen is that some nutrients will compete. So at certain doses, different nutrients, if they're going in at the same time, one will fill up the space allowed for absorption. So within your digestive tract in different areas, you have receptors for certain nutrients, for iron, calcium, zinc, particularly minerals. So if you're taking zinc at the same time as copper, you'll find that there's a competition, and there's a few different nutrients, mainly the minerals that actually compete for the receptor sites. So if you're taking a large dose of, say, iron and calcium together, you'll knock a little bit of one of them out. which is also why our calcium dose is below 500 milligrams, because it's been shown that if you take an iron and calcium together, and the calcium is at a dose of about 500 or 600 milligrams, it will start to knock out the iron absorption. So, yes, and the second question about age and menopause, I believe it's more to do with age than it is to do with menopause. Your needs change after menopause because estrogen is the protector of bones. And once we lose all of our production of estrogen from our ovaries when menopause takes place, we're relying on a tiny little bit of less effective estrogen that's actually produced by our adrenals at that point. So that's why we encourage women who are perimenopause or menopausal to really try and abate their stress levels, because that's where estrogen is coming from, and it's very precious. So it's, yeah, once estrogen is lowered, the bones and the teeth are more impacted by calcium loss. So your needs for calcium after menopause are significantly higher than they were before. And again, the recommendations for weight loss surgery patients after menopause, the calcium levels are quite significant. And we do see bone density as an issue in this community. There's a whole range of reasons, but generally it's absorption. And it's also the type of or the form of these nutrients that you're taking is a massive player. So some forms of nutrients are less easily absorbed. So, for instance, you'll have calcium carbonate or calcium citrate, and they're calcium, right? But they're different. So, calcium carbonate is a very, it's an abundant and easy to get form of calcium, and it's cheaper than a citrate form. But when you take it in, you might have 500 milligrams of calcium carbonate and 500 milligrams of calcium citrate. And as a weight loss surgery patient or as a human overall, you'll take on and be able to absorb much more of the calcium citrate. And the reason for that is that it doesn't rely on as much acid as the calcium carbonate does. So, you know, when you're looking at the label on different multivitamins and supplements, you always need to be aware that it might say 500 milligrams of calcium, but what form is it and how good is it and what use is it to you? So another thing about our wonderful multivitamin is that we use all the best forms that are research-based and ideal for weight loss surgery patients as well. So you can rely on it. And post-menopause or post-50s, really, that's when another, or with some people, depending on their health, their stress levels, that sort of thing, stomach acid also starts to drop in enzymatic activity. So absorption can be, again, limited. And that's why you'll see a lot of the elderly will have the similar nutrient deficiencies as a weight loss surgery patient will. So B12, iron, calcium deficiency are rife in the elderly community, and it's because they have lower levels of acid. And some of them, they've lost their teeth, or they live on their own, or they're just not eating as well as they could be. And that leads to that malnutrition on top of malabsorption similar. So I hope that answers your questions, Erin. And next is Carolyn. Here's my question. How long does it take your body to acclimatize after massive weight loss? I'm freezing. I'm freezing cold 24/7, even with the heater on. I'm wearing my beanie inside to try and warm up. I hear this a lot. And yes, it's likely to be that you've been well protected for some years now. And it's no mystery that being more abundant can lead to you feeling warmer. It also is because when you are in that larger frame, your body's working a lot harder to just, you know, keep standing up. There's a lot more stress on the body, a lot more stress on the structures and the organs. So there's a lot more heat that's generated. But I don't have an answer for how long it takes for you to get better at managing that. The other thing that manages temperature is, and it should be something that you consider, is the thyroid. So its job is to manage metabolism and thermostatic control as well. So if you think it's not just because you've lost a lot of weight, it might be worth just getting that checked out as well. Good reason to keep moving though. If you're freezing, you could, do some squats and keep your blood circulating and your body temperature raised. But yeah, I'd have to do a bit of a survey on the rest of the community here and ask them if they were cold for a certain period of time. But I do hear a lot of it, particularly women who are sitting in offices and now are in the air conditioning, and they're wearing lots of jackets and that sort of thing. So that's my rough answer. Hanny has asked us, why is it I can't keep my multi-cap down after breakfast, but it's fine later in the day? And I would also put this down to the level of stomach acid you have in the morning. So some patients will find if you wake up and you've got a really good appetite, it generally indicates that your digestion's ready to go. If you wake up and you're like, oh, I really should have breakfast, might have a coffee, not very hungry, and your appetite is slow to kick off for the day, it does generally tend to indicate perhaps you have a low level of acid in the morning, and that you can help that. There's ways you can deal with that. But generally, if something's going in at other times of the day and it's fine, but you can't tolerate it in the morning, I would generally say it's due to that kind of getting the digestion kick-started for the day. So you could talk to your practitioner about sort of doing that with maybe digestive enzymes, or lemon juice in water will help on an empty stomach. Just something that's a bit more is a bit of a kickstarter for the digestive and the gallbladder, that sort of thing. So I would say perhaps that might be why. And you can do one of two things. You can just take your capsule later in the day, or you could have a look at what's going on and see if you'd like to work with that underlying what might be happening there. So I hope that helps you too. Next question from Karen. I'm having major issues managing the multivitamin. I feel sick and I want to gag. Change to the multi with no iron, but it made me feel sick as well. So it's not the iron that's making you feel sick. So my question would be, has this happened before? And the gagging, is that something that's new? And is it the gagging on the feeling of the multivitamin, or is it the actual, it's in your stomach and making you feel sick, which it sounds like it's doing both. There can be some changes after the surgery as well, with a kind of heightened gag reflex. And then you've got this association sometimes with, here we go again, I'm going to take this tablet, and it's, it can be that you build up a thing around it. And it could be that there's something in there that you're reacting to. And generally it is the iron. I'd also need to ask if you're taking the capsules or the chewables. So there's a whole lot of questions I can't really answer because I've got limited information. And yes, you're worrying because multis are vital, which is great because you know that. So what I would suggest, Karen, is maybe if you can send me an email and I can just explore that with you over the week and just make sure we're troubleshooting that. And so we're working through whether it's capsules or chewables, and if you're taking them with food, if you're, there's a few different things you can try. So maybe we could work on that for you during the week. Thank you. Next one, Trudy. I understand we should be careful with proteins and other supplements, but I wondered about these. They've popped into my feed lately. And you'll notice Facebook's very clever, that when you start looking for things on the internet or exploring different things, they'll just magically start showing you incredible supplements and ideas for more of what you've just bought. And people do tend to present me with different products and say, is this okay? But they always show me the front of the label. And so this one, again, is the front of the labels, and I don't know what's in it. It's a lean up protein, skin berries, got to watch out for that. Here's a magical wand I'm waving over your skin just with these berries. And yes, berries are great for your skin, but I don't know what's in that product, and it looks like multi-level marketing to me. And generally they will do you no harm, because that's how they formulate these products, so they don't do any harm, but they may also not do you much good. And it's all comes down to the ingredients, and not only the ingredients, but how much. So I might have an item where it has like the skin berries, claiming amazing things for your skin, and it's based on berries, but really to make that claim in a unregistered or unregulated area like these products come from, I could say it helps your skin, and I could say it's got berries in it, but it could have 2% berries and it may help your skin. So it's I'm always very aware, and I always like to remind that the packaging generally is marketing on the front and facts on the back. So get really good at having a look at the panels on the back and having a look at what's in it. Because again, they'll say, you know, this is great for your brain, and it's got ginkgo biloba, and that is a fact. It's good for your brain. But if there's, you know, 2 milligrams of ginkgo in a product, it's not going to do your brain any good. So yes, they can claim that it's there, and yes, they can say that ginkgo is good for your brain, but at a 2 milligram dosage, it's definitely not any good for your brain. So it's really getting to be discerning about what's in the product and how much of it is in the product, and is that amount going to change my life. So I'd be aware of this one because I just look at the ad and it looks very pretty, but I'm a bit skeptical. So you'll also realize that our multis also are TGA approved, which means we can't make claims on things that aren't happening. So unregulated products that are not TGA approved can pretty much tell you whatever they want. So it's also to have a look for on the bottle, that'll have an AUSTEL code, AUST-L, and that tells you that it's TGA approved and it's actually got legs. Well, not long legs, but legs. So Terry Ann wants to know if the chewable multis can be dissolved. They can, and some people just after surgery who don't want to chew, or they've got an issue with something similar, you can dissolve them in like a little bit of juice. It takes a little while, but it does get there, and then you can just drink it down. So we've tried different juices, and I quite like the little the V8 veggie juice is quite nice, and it mixes in really well. You do need to be organized, so you'd have to put it in, and if you could break it up, but if you put a whole chewable in, it will dissolve, but it takes a little while. So try that out. The other thing you can do with the capsules is split them open into yogurt or into a smoothie if you want to, if you're really committed to taking the capsules really early after your surgery as well. Thank you. Sue is asking about feeling hungry and tired, and I think I covered this before, maybe in last week. I'll comment on here and just give you a link to our podcast website where all the live videos are, but we have covered feeling tired and hungry, and often it's just not enough food. And generally I would say just check in on what you're eating, how much every day. Your next question is, do I need more protein and different vitamins? So I don't know if you're taking in 80 or 90 grams of protein a day, or 20 or 30 grams. So it's really having a look at and diarising what you're eating, so you can really get clear on what it's all about and how much of everything you're taking in. The Centrum 50, I'm not a fan for the same reason, is it just doesn't have enough of what you need. But it also is in the cheaper forms. So you've got a lot of carbonates in there that look really like they're there, but often your body's just not taking them in. So I've got the comparison also between the Centrum and the BN Multi to give you an idea of what the difference is between a bariatric multivitamin and a like a Centrum or a supermarket brand. I also just recently did a podcast on my own on the difference between the multivitamins, the general multis and the bariatric ones. So I'll just type in here the website for my podcast, and you can all have a look and see what's on there. because there's lots, it's growing every week, and I'm going to talk about it later. But the two questions you've asked me, you'll find the answers to on the podcast website, either in a podcast or either in the collection of the live videos from here. So I hope you've got a few days spare to listen to my dulcet tones. Thank you for your question. Vicky is asking, after bypass revision, how long before changing from chewables to capsule, and what's the flavour of the chewables? After a bypass, I don't know, I'd love it if people took the chewables for at least 3 months. I'm a bit of a stickler just to make sure everything's settled in. And if you like the chewables and you're happy, you could continue doing that for the rest of your life. And that contains everything you need, as far as it has all your broad brush multivitamin supply and calcium. If you're taking the capsules, you'll need a calcium supplement alongside, because the calcium's just not in that capsule, to make it more flexible, because some people need a different dose of calcium and others also need to spread things out for different reasons as well. So it gives you flexibility. It also helps with the size of the capsule, because calcium's such a big molecule. So with the calcium in the capsule, you would be able to get it down. So I would say 3 months of the chews. If you don't want to chew up the chewable, you just break it into 3 or 4 pieces and you can swallow it. Don't swill it down with a large gulp of water, but you can take it like a tablet when it's small enough. And it's really easily assimilated, which is why it's formulated the way it is. So I hope that helps, Vicky. And another question, she's had an afterthought. If I already take a vitamin D and iron tablet due to being low, will the B and multi replace these after my surgery? Good question. This is a great question, because it's something that some people are a bit grey on. So when you have, so vitamin D and iron are low at the moment, and then we're going into surgery with nutrients that are low. So if you've got some time, Vicky, and obviously they're supplementing at the moment, to bump those levels up as much as you can before your surgery is helpful, because those two nutrients are harder to take on board after the surgery as well. So when you're starting low and trying to catch up in that period also where you're not eating very much, it's really, it's a great opportunity if you've got some time to just help get on track before you go in. If you're already taking vitamin D and iron because you're low, you'll find, yes, you probably will need to continue those 2 separate nutrients after your surgery. And the reason for that is that our multi is geared to maintain your levels. So it's your insurance policy that you take every single day to help make sure you're putting into the tank just your needs for that day. And that's basically how it's been put together, is the research into what you need every day and the allowance for your food intake, which is restricted. So if vitamin D and iron are low and you just take ours, you'll probably find that it will maintain it at low. So you do need to boost things up alongside. And that's just for a period of time. Then once you're back up at, you're in that nice healthy range, you'll find you can just use ours on its own to maintain as well. So you're looking at the BN as a way to maintain and protect you from deficiency, not to recover from deficiency, but you need them together. So if you stop taking your BN and you're just taking vitamin D and iron, something else will go low. So it is something that's why we do your bloods every 6 months, to check out just how you are tracking and what we need to do to see if there's something running lower. If it's slipping just slightly, we can boost up your dose with something else alongside, just to prevent deficiencies as well. So it sounds like you're thinking about it, which is great, and considering what you need to do. So well done. Excellent. So I'll get on moving. That's all the questions. Let me see if anyone else has got any questions. Yeah, I've heard, just looking, Natalie says, I've heard you shouldn't take iron and calcium at the same time. It is true that they will block each other, but it has to be at a certain dose. So if you're taking iron and about 600 mils of calcium, you'll start to compete. But if you're taking iron and only 200 milligrams of calcium, you should be fine. which is also why we just have that much in the multi, because they don't compete that way. Very good. Wow, Carolyn, I've lost nearly 100 kilograms in a year and a half. Is 150 grams of protein per day too much? We generally, the calculation for protein is looking at 0.9 grams of protein per kilogram of ideal body weight. So your goal weight or your ideal weight for your height and your frame. So say your ideal weight is 70 kilograms, you'd be aiming for between 0.9 and 1 gram of protein per kilogram. So you're looking at about 65 to 70 grams of protein a day. So any excess protein will be stored as fat, but it's harder to store that as fat. But it can mean you'll be feeling quite thirsty. Protein needs a lot of water, and if it's high and it's consistently 150 grams, you could find there's a bit of stress on the kidneys, or maybe signs of like a uric acid buildup, like gouty arthritis or joint pain, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's quite a mission to fit 150 grams of protein into a tiny tummy. So, but yeah, people think it's free, and I said this last week, and protein's not free. It's cheaper because it uses more energy. It needs more energy to actually be processed and digested than a carbohydrate does. Got heaps of questions tonight. It's really good. Next question's Paula. Can you talk about thyroid? Thyroid's tricky, and maybe I'll do a podcast on that one. I know someone who will be fantastic for that, because it is very tricky, and it's something that I don't want to just give blanket advice on. I will say that when iron is low, it will be affecting your thyroid, because the thyroid needs iron and oxygen to function properly. So when you've got iron deficiency, you'll find that your thyroid might just be slower. I won't say low or hypo. There's no medical terminology for it. But you will find that weight loss will be harder, because you've also got less energy, and you've also got less oxygen and iron. So the key nutrients that really support good thyroid health and thyroid hormone production are zinc and selenium. And yes, a lot of people are on medication to help to form thyroid hormone, but they don't have zinc and selenium. So they're banging their head against the wall trying to make these hormones out of stuff they don't have on board. So you can see how important it is to have your nutritional ducks all in a row to help support the function of your medication even. So we're complex little beings, aren't we? I love it. There's just so many different chemical reactions that all take place, and all need different nutrients to be present to actually function. So it's awesome. And thank you. So that's your question, Terry. And also, okay, thank you. Yeah, I can, if you want to email me, Paula, I can perhaps point you in the right direction of some information that will help support you, because it's a tricky one. And it depends on who you're seeing as to what they classify as hypo or hyperthyroidism from your bloods, and people will treat it in very different ways. And Natalie is asking about my podcast. Yay! So the podcast website is awlspodcast.com. I'll post it in the group now you've asked. Australian Weight Loss Surgery Podcast, and I'm starting to totally love doing it. And I started out with a surgeon, Aaron Deere, who helped to explain all about the surgeries, and it's kind of the beginning. And now every time I do something, it kind of leads me to another person. And I did a great podcast. I didn't actually do it. Someone asked me to be on their podcast. Natasha Andriadis, who's an obstetrician gynecologist and a fertility endocrinologist, and we had an hour. I don't usually do an hour, but it was fantastic. And she was talking all about nutrition and fertility and weight loss surgery and fertility, and why wait until 18 months after you've had your surgery to try and fall pregnant. So head over to the podcast. And this week I did Melanie McGrice, who's very well known in Melbourne, and she's on the Today Show a lot. And she's a dietitian in Melbourne who talks fertility also. So we've got a really nice thread going with some fertility information and weight loss surgery patients as well. So thank you for asking, because I get to free plug me. So the other thing we've got to talk about is the 50 foods. I haven't seen many charts being posted, so I want to see that. To go back to the top of the group in the files, and you'll find the list that you can download and just start recording again your 50 foods. Last week I saw we had some great response from the red foods. And I forgot to mention, I think, why we would eat cooked tomatoes over raw tomatoes, and that's because lycopene is activated by heat. So it's good for men and their prostate. And now I think I did mention it. So now this week we're moving on through the colours of the rainbow, which is helping me to remember where I'm at. So last week we did red. So this week we're doing orange. So what do you reckon next week will be, if you know how to remember the colours of the rainbow? Roy, G, Biv. Do you remember that from school? Red, orange, yellow. G for green, B for blue, indigo, violet. So God knows what we're going to do for indigo foods. So this week is orange, and there's a game and there's prizes. And there were prizes last week, and the winners were Kelly Peters and also Rose Ferrugia for their answers for the game. And you guys have both won a meal planner. So it's got the magnetic meal planner and the shopping list. And if you can email support@bnmulti.com and just send us your details, we'll get those out to you this week. So this week is orange. And why would you bother eating orange food? Because I said so. Because there's lots of vitamin A to be had in orange foods, is one benefit. I wrote it all down before. And beta carotene, why do you think they call them carrots? Because they've got beta carotene in them. And beta carotene, and there's retinols and retinols, and they're all part of creating vitamin A, which often falls low in weight loss surgery patients as well. I'm glad you're happy, Rose. So get around some orange foods. I think this week, paw or papaya. I rate that. I rate it because it's orange and it's full of fibre and goodness, and it's easy to eat once you've just got it cut in half. But also for the questions we had before about absorbing nutrients, if you're eating these enzymatic foods before your meal, you'll start to really activate your digestion. And paw, papaya, kiwi fruit and pineapple are enzymatic foods, and not all of them are orange, but this one is. And so if you eat that before your food, you start to, you're giving your body some help in digesting your food as well. Helps your microbiome, does all sorts of things as well. So there's lots of fibre, obviously in fruit and veggies, but also the orange foods. I wish I'd stop turning the pages over on my desk. I keep losing my notes. The orange foods are good for your heart, your blood pressure. They're good for type 2 diabetes. They're good because a lot of them are actually low GI. Oranges will help you increase your iron uptake. So you could take your multi, have your meal, have a piece of orange or half an orange or however much will fit at the end of a meal, and you'll increase your iron intake. Also, folate is in quite a lot of the orange foods as well. So I'll post a few extra benefits. A lot of it's around cholesterol, cardiovascular health, and like I said, with the orange, the enzymatic papaya. So this week I want you to try papaya. And they're in season because I can find them quite readily, although I'm in Queensland and they're a tropical fruit. Also, let's try some sweet potato, the orange one, and show me how many different ways you would cook that, because that's pretty versatile. The other thing with sweet potato is I think it's a great replacement for the white potato, particularly when you're trying to manage your glycemic index of your foods and how much your different foods affect your blood sugars. So sweet potato is like a good swap for the white potato. And I'm not saying white potatoes shouldn't ever be eaten ever again, but it's got a bit more going for it is all. Although white potato has a lot of potassium also, and sometimes electrolyte balance is an issue in our community. So it goes to show that, moderation in all things, because there's nothing that's in the healthy food realm that's, you can have too much of. So I think the orange foods is a good way to go. And I think that's all we've got. If I can think of anything else, I will. Oh, there was the winners. Oh, thank you. And also, if you do have more questions about what we've spoken about, post them in the group. And also, don't forget, you could win $100 voucher if you write us a review. And you'll find that in the group too. So there's a link I posted on Sunday, I think it was, with an encouraging note to hop through the link and leave us a review. And you could win $100, a voucher for our store for $100. I reckon that's pretty good. And I think that's it. 37 minutes. Whew. You're probably all waiting for me to be quiet. So thanks again. I've got more and more people each week showing up, which is great. And please put your foods in the group so we can see what you're up to. So many people are making such a great effort. So keep it up. See you next week. Don't forget the podcasts. Bye.